All right, let's talk about Nike. But I want you to forget the polished billionaire CEO you see today. We're going to rewind the clock all the way back to 1962. We're talking about a kid from Oregon, fresh out of school with a master's degree, a decent resume, and a secret. He had absolutely no idea what he was doing with his life. Well, except for one crazy idea. This was the kind of thing that just haunted him. It's this old pioneer saying, right? But for him, it wasn't just some quote, it was a dare. And honestly, it sets the stage perfectly for what is one of the most chaotic, near failure, and, in the end, totally triumphant business stories ever told. So, who was this guy before he became the Phil Knight? He definitely wasn't some born titan of industry, that's for sure. The story of Nike really begins with a reluctant rebel, someone who felt way more like an outsider than a future CEO. I mean, look at him on paper. NBA, served in the army. Phil Knight was supposed to be an adult ready to go. But inside, he was completely lost. He just craved a life that felt meaningful. Something with purpose, something different. He didn't just want to earn a living, he wanted to play. He wanted to feel that incredible rush, that moment of pure clarity right before you know if you're going to win or lose. Okay, so let's get into this crazy idea. It all started with a paper he wrote for a class at Stanford. He got obsessed with this idea that high-quality, low-cost running shoes from Japan could totally blow up the market. But it turned into something so much bigger, a playbook for how to do the impossible. And this, right here, is the first huge lesson from his journey. Knight didn't have some perfect 10-year business plan or a foolproof strategy. He didn't even have a name for his company. What he had was a direction, get to Japan, and this relentless refusal to just stop moving. For him, action was everything. Now, this is what I find so fascinating, this aha moment. See, Knight had tried selling before. He sold encyclopedias door to door, and it was torture. He felt like a total fraud. But selling these shoes, it was a completely different game. Suddenly, he wasn't a salesman anymore. He was just a believer, sharing something he was passionate about. And that's the lesson, right? When you truly believe in what you're doing, it's not selling, it's connecting. And this pretty much sums it up. This was the advice he literally gave himself one morning while he was out on a run. It became the engine for the entire company. It's so raw, so simple, but man, is it relentless. This was the playbook. But here's the thing. This relentless mindset wasn't really about chasing some glorious victory. For the first, decade, the company was just in a constant, desperate fight to survive. This was the art of not losing. And you have to understand this to get his motivation. It wasn't about ego. It wasn't about glory. It was about staying in the game day after day. Every single morning was a new battle to just not be annihilated, to live to fight another day. Survival was the only victory that mattered. And this was the huge conflict that almost killed the whole company. The bank would look at their insane sales growth and think, whoa, this is dangerous. He's growing way too fast for his cash balance. But Knight knew the truth about the shoe business. If you weren't growing, you were just handing the entire market over to your competitors. You were basically already dead. And then this happened. Out of nowhere, some obscure customs rule gets turned into a weapon against them. And bam, a sudden, impossible bill for $25 million. A single piece of paper that threatened to just erase everything they had built, literally overnight. So how in the world did they survive that? Well, Knight had a secret weapon, and it wasn't a shoe. It was his people, an incredible band of brilliant, loyal, and completely unconventional misfits. These were his guys, the butt faces, as they actually called themselves. And they were a team of rejects from the so-called normal world. You had people like Jeff Johnson, a social worker who was so obsessed he mailed Knight letters every single day. Or Bob Udell, an amazing track star whose career was just ended by a freak accident. Every one of them had been overlooked or cast aside. But together they had this ferocious desire to prove everybody wrong. And this is why it worked. Knight didn't manage them like a typical boss. He basically just wound them up and let them go. He gave them total trust and the freedom to fail because he knew that was the only way they would ever do something truly great. And that trust, it built a loyalty that was just unbreakable. So as the company finally started to find solid ground, Nate had this realization. The journey was never really about the shoes at all. It was about the race itself. And he realized the whole point wasn't about reaching some final goal. The reward was the struggle. It was the uncertainty, the daily grind of just putting one foot in front of the other. The real destination was the journey. And that, right there, is the ultimate lesson. Success isn't some fixed point on a map that we're all racing toward. It's a horizon. And you are the one who gets to set it for yourself. The book doesn't end with a tidy little summary. It ends with a question. For Phil Knight, the goal was never about a number in a bank account. It was to create something, to play, to feel alive in the race. So it kind of leaves us all to wonder about our own crazy ideas, our own struggles, and the finish lines we're setting for ourselves. What's yours?